Parents, are you ready to dance with the stars?
Every time this music comes on, I'm ready to dance with the stars. Ready to jive, groove, whatever. Ready to do some dancing.
Is that called office chair dancing?
Yeah. I'm trying to start a wave of something.
I'm a terrible, terrible dancer.
I'm not good either. I try to have some rhythm, but it's not the best. But yeah, I like grooving. I like jiving.
I'm a cringe, to use a current word. I'm a cringe dancer.
You get the dad moves, the sprinkler, the lawnmower. Yeah, those are, yeah. I'm pretty much a cringe. I think we're in the same boat with that. But why are we talking about dancing? What's the real purpose for us talking about dancing here?
Actually, you need to tell me why we are talking about dancing.
Okay.
I just obeyed. You said, ask this question. I asked this question. And now I need to see why you asked this question.
Well, I love this question. Like, we're obviously Stop Parenting, Start Coaching, and we talk a lot about communication. It's such a critical skill to help us connect with our kids, to understand them, to help them feel like we understand them, to build trust. Just a crucial skill. And there's a shocking, I know. I've been doing some research. Okay.
Nerd timer?
No, not so much. It's just I wanted to pull in this. That's where this idea of the dancing came in, because I was reading an article about sarcasm, and because I know we talk a lot about that. Love the topic, by the way.
You don't like sarcasm.
Not a fan. Yeah. If you find people from my past, I've definitely been a very sarcastic person in the past. And I'm trying to be better. It's hard. Like, confession on my part, I am definitely somebody that has used sarcasm a lot over my life in coaching, parenting, just being a husband, being a teacher. And I'm embarrassed to say that. I don't think it's a great form of communication. Just to tip my hand.
So what's the research?
So the research on this one says communication is a dynamic dance that involves the speaker, the recipient, and their relationship with each other. And I wanted to get into this idea of that dynamic dance, because one of the things that people value the most in people that they allow to be close to them is a good sense of humor, being funny. Like, if you ask most people, who do you like? Who do you admire? And then what they admire about them, you're going to get to funny pretty fast, especially when you're dealing with teens, is they love somebody that can be funny. And I think how we get funny is a critical thing for us to talk about. I think it's really important. Like, you are one of the wittiest people I know. Like, you're very witty. You got a great sense of humor like that. And you bring a nice, clever wit to conversations that makes it a lot of fun.
Look at this face. You can tell, right?
Yes, that is a witty face.
But the two often get confused. In fact, you just made a confession. I feel like I'm throwing you under the bus if I do not join you in the confessional booth here and make my confession. I kind of have to go back to my high school coach. You know, I revere him. I love him.
Yeah.
He was my favorite and best coach, John Astorkia. And I think he is one of the funniest people I've ever been around. I can hear his laugh right now. It's been a long time. I mean, it was in the past century, but oh man, he was clever. He was witty. He was funny, but some people also thought that he was sarcastic. Maybe it's because there's like something to the dry wit that is that there's some cleverness to dry wit, and he was that way.
For sure.
But some people would say that he was mean. I didn't think so. Some people would say that at times I was mean. I think back to, okay, was I really being clever and witty, or was I being sarcastic? We'd probably have
That's a great question.
We would probably have to rewind the tape and look
Well,
and
this is why
see.
the dance conversation is a really good place to go with this, because it's a dynamic dance. It's between the speaker and the receiver. And so you can be coming at this from a very clever, witty, or what you feel is a clever, witty thing. But if the receiver is coming at that and they're in a different frame of mind or a different state of mind, they can perceive your clever wit as more of a sarcastic type of thing.
Right.
And that's where this dance really gets complex is, are we being witty or are we being sarcastic? And it's not really up to us to decide. It's for the receiver to pick that up and say, okay, this is how I'm choosing to take this. And so, like as a speaker, we can only control. This goes back to our conversation about controlling the controllables too. I can only control what I say and how I say it, but I can't control how it's received.
There are certain things that would help,
yes,
separate the two in a pretty clear manner.
Yeah.
And if we start blurring
only there
the
was
lines,
a list of some of those things.
If we start blurring the lines, that could be a big problem.
It's a game changer in relationships.
Do you want to start
if those
us
lines
off?
get blurred in the wrong way, it definitely. Yeah, I'll start us off. The first one that blurs those lines is tone and delivery.
Tone is one you hear a lot about, especially in our texting and emailing world that we live in.
Yeah, there was another research article I was reading that like there's a 17% difference between if somebody says something sarcastic in an email or in a text, 17% higher people perceive it to be rude, even if it's not meant to be rude. Like it definitely skews things to the negative when we try to be sarcastic in print.
That's why you've got to use some of those emojis that
add a little tone. But tone and delivery that's the first blur line.
Yeah. By the way, listeners, I know it's emoji. I was just poor attempt at being clever and witty right there. You say that to a teenager, you usually get a little bit, some raised eyebrows and a little bit of laugh, and they're like, you poor baby boomer. You know, you don't get it.
Okay, boomer.
Okay, so tell me what would be sarcasm? What would be the tone and delivery?
It's going to come with more of a biting, mocking kind of tone to it, kind of a cutting edge to it. And it ties again very much in with how you deliver that. Like you can throw something out there, and sarcasm is almost like saying one thing but meaning another. So you might say one thing, but then your tone and delivery is what directs somebody to get the opposite meaning to it. And it's
so you add some confusion in there.
Yes.
Maybe not.
That's one of the things that sarcasm does. And it really does blur that line. Whereas clever wit is going to be more of a lighthearted delivery, more of a playful kind of thing where there's some charm to it. And this is where I think you do well with your wit, is that you tend to be very lighthearted, playful, and charming as you're delivering a lot of those jokes, which makes it fun. I would imagine your coach was the same way.
I would imagine that you need to become my PR director. If you're going to describe me as playful and charming.
Yes, you are. But it feels like the tone and delivery of clever wit is way less harsh. Like it doesn't come across as trying to be hurtful. And sarcasm, it's like you can feel the intent. It's like, I'm trying to poke the bear here.
Yeah.
You got any other ones where that line gets blurred?
You just made me think of one. You say you're trying to poke the bear here. So I think if we talk about what is the intention of this, what you're doing in the conversation, and if it's in sarcasm, the intent is going to be linked to belittling. You're trying to criticize, show frustration with the other person.
Yeah. This is, as a coach, this is where I was most guilty of using sarcasm. is that I would go to that as a way of expressing that frustration. And it was a big
Do you have
L.
do you have an example?
Oh gosh, too many to pick up just one, but it would be just like, yeah, great job dribbling the ball there.
After he dribbled it off his foot, or
Yeah,
over
for the
dribbled, or
the second or third time, but it didn't
hey,
matter.
great job there. Great job of dribbling.
Right. And that's a terrible thing for a coach to do.
Right.
Like I probably should write handwritten letters of apology to all my players before 10 years ago.
So basically it's a put down.
Yeah. A put down that's in disguise. And yeah.
We're on the other side, clever is going to be amusing. You may actually even show some intellect.
Yeah. And the intent behind the clever wit's not to mock somebody. Like it's not to make somebody feel bad for a mistake or something like that. The clever wit is to lighten the mood so somebody feels less bad about a mistake that they just made. Whereas sarcasm's the opposite.
So get rid of the ridicule, get rid of any belittling. Okay. Yep. You got something, you got another one.
Well, another place they blur is like the impact that it has on others. I talk a lot about this in my classes, and I've learned to describe sarcasm because people like sarcasm. For some reason, it's a revered form of communication and people admire it. They wear t-shirts broadcasting how great they are at sarcasm and how it's their primary form of communication. But the impact it has on others is the toughest thing. It's the riskiest form of communication. Sarcasm.
That's worth writing down. Can you tell me why? Why is it the riskiest? It gets at
this idea of the effect that it has on others. Because if I go to sarcasm to try to deliver a message, to make a point, to motivate somebody, to do any of the things that we use sarcasm to do, I'm very much risking my personal relationship with that person. And I'm also risking their psychological well-being to a certain extent. If I say the wrong thing at the wrong time, I can really hurt somebody, especially in a leadership position. Like friend to friend is a little bit different. I still don't think sarcasm is a great way because there's a lot of risk that goes on in there, even friend to friend. Because you never know if your friend's having a bad day and maybe you guys get sarcastic with each other a lot, but then you go with the sarcasm and you don't know they're having an awful day. And the impact it has on them in that situation is really negative, and then they end up getting hurt. Whereas wit it's way more likely to be appreciated. I think a clever wit almost subconsciously takes into account the mood of the people around them and kind of reads that mood and plays to it in a way that will be appreciated.
I think we need to make a distinction is, I'm going to use a word that's always, you will hear this all the time when there is some type of misunderstanding or, that dance is, there's not going to be alignment, and that is the word context. Mm-hmm. So when we're being sarcastic, once again, we're reforming, right, Nate?
Right.
We're trying to improve, but when you're being sarcastic, you might, there's an exaggeration on what is actually the opposite of the truth. So like when you said, hey, great job dribbling. Well, it actually wasn't a good job of dribbling.
Mm-hmm.
And you're exaggerating that, and then you add in the intent and the tone, and you have a communication disaster here. Yep. Where on the flip side of it, clever wit, you're going to say something that actually is intelligent, that's going to be amusing and funny, but it's going to be uplifting. Maybe you use a play on words, but it's not going to be a personal attack, and you're not going to be talking about something that is not true. You're actually going to be emphasizing something that is true.
Yeah.
Am I hitting the target there, or
I think you're nailing the target with that. I think that's a really fantastic point. Because it's the uplifting factor that really makes the difference in this communication. Think about how you want to communicate with the people that you love the most. Do you want to risk any of these things?
Mm-mm.
Do you want to risk somebody feeling like they're less than or that they're being made fun of? And that's why I say sarcasm is risky. Now, clever wit can also be a little bit risky. I think we overestimate how witty we are sometimes. And so it's so much of it's about reading the audience, the person you're communicating with. What mood are they in first? What do they need to hear from me right now?
rather than making the assumption that it's just always time to be funny.
Yeah.
I've made that mistake before with teens,
it's
just
easy
assuming
to
that it's well, I still remember when my coach, sorry coach, but I'm going to tell the dumped by my girlfriend story. I remember shooting free throws, and all of a sudden I feel this arm on my shoulder, and he looked at me and he said, "Are you going to be okay?" He kind of said it like that. And he had found out that I got dumped.
Uh-huh.
I got dumped that day. I wasn't feeling too good. It's not the best feeling. And
was he being sincere when he asked that?
You would have to ask him. I would say, see, this is where you can really start blurring the lines between, I would call that clever needling, but maybe needling is where you're getting into sarcasm.
Yeah.
Teasing, needling. Maybe there's some different levels of this too, Nate, where it's full-blown sarcasm trying to hurt. Now, I would say this. There is no way he was trying to hurt me when he said that. No
How
way.
do you know there was no way he was trying to hurt you?
Because of the zillions of other times where he showed love towards me, and I mean, he believed in me. He helped me to believe in myself.
Yeah.
And the time he spent with me trying to help me, and other times where it was full on character development, even if I didn't really notice it at the time. He was trying to teach us life lessons, help us to be good men, good students, productive members of society, all of those things. So I knew he really cared about me. And it was also one of those things too, where if he was giving you that kind of attention, everybody would always say, "Hey, he really cares about you." So I don't know what you think about that, though.
Well, it highlights a point. The reason I asked the question is when we take the time to build a good relationship with somebody, it allows us a little more bandwidth when it comes to clever wit. So if we've built the foundation of having a good relationship and we understand each other more, it opens up a bigger window for clever wit. But I have, like, when you're dealing with sarcasm, you have to factor in the importance of the person and the relationship you have with them. You also have to factor in the importance of the situation. And the higher the importance of the situation and the higher the importance of the relationship, the riskier it is to go with something that may even be like an attempt at humor, sarcasm, wit. Like, that was a pretty risky situation for him to come to you when you've just been dumped. Like, that's a high stakes situation. When I'm coaching these guys, like I talk about how I would be sarcastic with them in these, like a game situation. That's a very high stakes situation for a young man, young woman that's playing a sport or a performance. And if I'm sarcastic in that moment, that's insanely risky. Like, I can do some serious damage to people by being sarcastic in those moments. And I did. And I feel bad about that. That's part of why I'm so passionate about this topic, because I feel like I've screwed it up really bad. But factoring in those two things, the importance of the relationship and the importance of the situation, can be a good guide for when to go with something that's a little more witty.
Right. And I think it's very I know it's been helpful for me to make that clear distinction between what is sarcasm, what is clever wit.
Mm-hmm.
And really thinking in advance. This is the old engage brain before engaging mouth.
Engage your brain first.
As you're thinking about tone, delivery, intent, how it's going to affect the other person in context, you got to do a little homework here before you got to do a little practice maybe before you start dancing, so that we, I mean, how do you feel like you've ever blurred the lines?
Oh man.
Between sarcasm and clever wit?
All the time. I'm trying to get better at now. Like there's an intent. I'm trying to be more aware of like my delivery, my style, how I'm presenting these things, the context that I'm saying things in. But it's hard. It's really hard to do because you want to be funny. Hard. We want to be relatable. We want to be liked by people, and funny is a huge part of that. But I struggle blurring that.
I've just had an insight on how I can be better at this. I don't know if this would help other people, but to me, this would be more about worrying less about being funny, because I might say something that I think is witty, clever, and you may not even get a smile or a laugh out of it.
Yeah.
If you can, when you're in these communication situations, if you can totally cut out this bad intent, the mocking, put down, just get rid of that. I think the intent part might be maybe the most important part.
Huge key. Yeah, it could very well be.
I'm not going to belittle. I'm not going to use sarcasm to criticize and express my frustration. Then even if you are trying to go to the clever wit, even if you fall flat on that, I think you're going to probably be okay. But, I have an announcement to make, Nate.
Oh, please do.
And that is that in our next episode, we're going to unveil the top 10 reasons why sarcasm is not as clever as you think it is.
Ooh.
So this is for all the people out there that think that sarcasm is really clever, which I think I used to be in that camp. It's going to be good. I think I used to have a shirt. No, I didn't. But there's so many sarcasm t-shirts. I probably at one time could have owned the shirt that said sarcasm is my first language.
Yep. There's a lot of shirts that you see out there. I think I'm excited for this. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Get ready for the top 10 list.
Yeah. I think we are definitely ready for the list. On behalf of Steve Galley, I'm Nate Crandall, and we thank you, our loyal listeners, for tuning into this episode. If you love what you're learning from the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast, we would appreciate it very much if you would leave us a 5-star review and some glowing comments. We also encourage you to share this episode with your friends and family who are parents of athletes and performers. And if you want to explore further and see what Steve and I are creating to help thousands of parents, athletes, and performers, please visit our company's website at createtransformbecome.com. That's createtransformbecome, all one word, .com. There you will find a growing number of resources to help you elevate your performance. Thank you again for your support, and we encourage you to create a magical relationship with your athlete and performer.